There we go. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to Tech Tuesday. My name is Abbie Ritchie. I'm the founder of Senior Savvy, and you can find me right here every Tuesday interviewing people who are involved in making the lives of senior living operators better. That's what we're doing here today. Before I introduce my guests, I want to go ahead and get started. Okay, I've got two great guests here today. I'm thrilled to have them on board with me. First, I want to go ahead and introduce Katie Griffith to you at Bright Solutions. Bright Solutions is helping leaders of senior living communities create a technology plan. And we all know that we need this because when you can align your technology with your strategy, things fall into place. And one thing I want to do is I want to first welcome Katie. Katie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Abbie. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk about technology strategies today.
Absolutely. Me too. And next, I want to introduce David Baker. He is the SVP of IT and Facilities at Diakon Lutheran Social Ministries. He is an accomplished executive leader with a demonstrated history of improving strategic, tactical, and operational excellence. Go Stanford. Welcome to Tech Tuesday, Dave.
Thanks, Abbie. Thanks so much for having me. And Katie, thanks for asking me to join you. I appreciate that.
Thanks for joining, Dave.
Katie, I want to first talk about Bright Solutions. If you could tell me a little bit about the history, where did that name come from? And a little bit more about how you got started.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Abbie. We started 7 years ago. Bright Solutions is my company. We do technology consulting exclusively in the senior living industry. And where I started is, over 20 years ago when I started my career, I was working for software companies, doing implementations, customer service, and pretty quickly moved into a sales role. And as I was working with my clients, they were relying way too much on me, the salesperson, to help them figure out what they needed to do with the technology platform that I was selling them. So I really saw a need for an unbiased third party to come in and help these clients navigate their options out there. So, what do I need? How should I be utilizing this technology? And so 7 years ago, I said, hey, I'm going to start this business and start helping my friends in senior living. At the start of my career, I was doing implementations in senior living communities and just fell in love with the industry, the people. It's all about the people. That's what I love. People like Dave that I get to work with. And so that's where we started. And the name Bright is a family name. So my grandparents, Thomas and Imogene Bright, they were also entrepreneurs, and they had a small business in Tennessee. And that's where the name comes from, Bright Solutions.
It's so comforting and special when you can tie it into something that has meaning. So I'm so glad that you were able to do that. Dave, tell us a little bit about you and what you're involved in at your communities.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I started in senior living back in 95 when I was 5, I think, or something like that. But anyways, Diakon operates CCRCs and other senior living services. And we have a range of other programs for youth, families, and adults. In 2011, I took a hiatus. And I'm telling you this because I started doing CIO consulting and traveling the country for this other organization, which I eventually became the president. But I was literally on a plane from Sunday to Thursday. And a lot of my clients that I get to, I would be talking to them about how they need to implement this system. They go, we're going to get Katie to do this for us. And I'm like, after a while, I'm like, who is Katie? So finally, I meet her at one of the leading age conferences, and we hit it off. And thank God I did, because I eventually came back to Diakon in 2018, and I'm very heavily involved in the construction side of things. So we have for some reason, a lot of technology projects going on. All of the next 2 years, we're going to replace our EHR system, our HR payroll system, our POS system, our finance system, and move into Microsoft 365 in the cloud. What did I miss, Katie? Was there anything?
Yeah, we just wrapped on the fall detection and
Yes, yeah. Besides that, we're looking at fall prevention, emergency response, wonder management. So my focus as the leader has to be on the IL expansion projects and new revenue growth. So I can rely on Katie to help with the technology projects with her expertise and experience, her track record. Then I just need to clear roadblocks for her, and she'll get the stuff done. So I'm really
let's talk about those technology projects. So besides implementing all those other programs, what are some other integrations that you work on using?
Absolutely, and Katie, chime in. From my perspective, we'll do core applications. That's probably one of our bigger technology projects when we do something like that. But normally, Katie had mentioned the fall prevention system that we're doing. We have to go to all medical grade Wi-Fi for something like that. So that's a huge, broad spectrum project across all our communities to have medical grade Wi-Fi in all our skilled areas. So within that becomes integrations with an iPhone, for example. So our nurses will be carrying the iPhones, and they'll get the alerts from the fall prevention system, the emergency response system, a regular telephone call, and whatever that has to happen on that phone system in order to get the information from that application.
I like this idea a lot because what I find at the community is that the fall prevention is only as good as the people who are using it, right? So if you can make it more integrated, whether it's as a resident, you're using a watch, or it's something that they're going to want to use both on the operator side as well as the resident side, then you have a real win-win, right?
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, you think of an iPhone, our nurses, when they carry an iPhone, that's pretty much what they're carrying for their personal devices. So they really, they take care of it. They make sure they always know where it's at. They make sure it's always charged. And then they know it's a pretty important piece of their everyday life.
Would you consider that would be considered a successful technology integration project?
Katie, I'll let you respond. We're not quite done yet, so
yeah,
with that
for sure. And I think, I love that you started with integrations because a lot of times people just tag that on to the end of a technology project, like, oh, what do we want it to integrate with? When from the very start, you need to be having a more holistic approach to any technology project, even if it's just fall prevention. You need to be saying, well, what's our long-term strategy and our holistic approach to our business, and be able to say, well, how does this impact these other things that we're doing, and where do we need these integrations to come in, and breaking down those silos in the different departments and areas to make sure that we do have this whole approach that all works together and integrates together nicely to get the outcomes that you're looking for.
I want to just back up just a little bit because Christine chimed in and she asked about something Dave mentioned, which is a medical grade Wi-Fi. What is that and who needs it?
So medical grade Wi-Fi is more of a term used in our industry, in the acute care and the senior living industry. It's not really a proven term, but basically what it means is you're looking for, and it's a little technical, I apologize, minus 67 dB or better. That's just a measurement of the performance of the network. But from our end, it's high performing, reliable, always on, reaches every corner of your building. So if a nurse is walking with an iPad, for instance, and that's how you're capturing all your EHR information, that nurse can actually walk to every corner of the room. Maybe she wants to go over, or he wants to go over and open the drape at the same time that they're doing their documentation. That Wi-Fi has to be there. It has to be robust, has to be working for everybody.
Love it. So necessary. I know at the many communities that I visit, there are just spots where the Wi-Fi doesn't work. A resident wants to go out on their patio and, read the New York Times on their device, and they can't do that, or calls drop. And it's like what Katie said earlier, just about being prepared and looking towards the long run. And what happens when you don't look towards like the full system, the full integration, is that projects fail, right?
Yep.
I know as an entrepreneur, I have a lot of what I call orphan projects. These are things I wanted to start. It's a great project, but then for one reason or another, I couldn't facilitate it and execute it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that kind of like what happens when projects fail in communities?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's easy to describe how projects fail if you've ever just listen when somebody's going to start a project in your community. Katie, what's some of the things that you've heard?
Let's do this great project, Dave.
Or I like the salesperson at this company. Let's use their system.
No need to ask the end users. They're going to love it.
And our CEO said just to get it done, but she doesn't have the time to help.
Let's promise a deadline we can't possibly meet.
It's always a good one.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys have been down this road a lot. It sounds like this is like old hat for you. Yeah, absolutely. And I think we all kind of get in that boat from time to time. What would you say, Katie, have you found that organizations can do in order to ensure that they are successful integrating new technology?
Sure. Well, I think we have some really good tips for you today on making sure you're successful. And, to start, what does success look like? I mean, we're saying these projects succeed or fail, but who says? And, that a failure doesn't just mean, we never got it up and running and we canceled the contract with the vendor. I don't think that's usually what we're talking about when we say it failed. It means we didn't get the results we were looking for. So we're not spending enough time building a strong strategy and adoption plan ahead of time. We get really excited, and this is perfect timing leading up to the Leading Age National Conference in October, because you're going to go out on that trade floor and you're going to be so excited about all the vendors you talk to, and you're going to come back. And I can't tell you how many times my friends call me in senior living and say, Katie, there's just so many cool things and so many innovations, and we need so much of it. Like, where do I start? And so where you start is with your strategy, not your tech strategy, but your overall strategy as an organization, and look at what key initiatives you're focused on over the next, 1 to 5 years. And then what is your strategy to get there? And then what technologies and solutions can support the strategy and the plan that we've put into place. And that's where you start. And so really defining that and defining what you're, what you're working towards. So an example, I like to think about horse racing. So I could go buy a horse for, I don't know how much those things cost to win the Kentucky Derby. Does that mean I'm going to win the Kentucky Derby because I bought the horse that's fully capable of winning the Kentucky Derby? Absolutely not. I need people. I need processes. I need a strategy, because that horse isn't just going to win the Kentucky Derby on its own. And we're relying way too much on the vendor to show up and like make all of our dreams come true. And they're not. They're just bringing you the horse.
Gotcha. Those are a lot of really good points. And I want to say also, just there's a lot to consider when you're taking in mind whether or not your project has been successful, and whether it's going to be successful today, or if you need to put a little more work into it, a little more strategy. We're going to go ahead and we're going to take a quick break from our sponsor. And when we come back, I want to focus on creating a project culture, as well as some of those 5 principles for successful tech projects that you had mentioned earlier. And now a word from our sponsor. Welcome back. We just left off, we were talking about projects, implementing them, and I wanted to also talk about good project management skills, as well as culture and some principles. So if you would, Dave, tell us, what do you consider at the operator level necessary for project project management skills?
Absolutely, Abbie. I think this is one that really hits home with me because I've been a project manager for a long time. I probably have over 500 million in construction projects and probably 40 or 50 million in technology projects. And I know what happens when things go wrong. You got few resources, you got strict deadlines, you got high expectations, you got small budgets. And a lot of times, because of the financing, we'll assign somebody, maybe our rock star employee, as the project manager for a technology project that we're doing. There's actually a term for that called accidental project manager. So we've taken somebody that's already overworked and we expect them to run the project and do their day job. And they also now lack the skills as a project manager. So the project may not get done, or worse, you might lose that rock star employee because you burn them out. So a project manager in today's age running projects needs to have the right education and experience with running the projects, the right balance of social and leadership skills. They need to be able to break down silos, ensure a holistic path, like Katie mentioned before. You don't have to be a subject matter expert in the whatever system that you're installing. But they should have I say PMP certification, project management professional certification. I don't rely on that a lot. I rely on
Thank you for spelling that out.
I rely on experience a lot more. So accurate project goals, strong developing project management, people management, implementation. You got to be good at documentation. You got to have an eye for risk.
And is that something that you do, or is that something you'd bring Katie in to do for your communities?
I no longer do it for my communities. I've done it a lot in the past, but when I do construction, I have a project manager from the construction team come in. When I do my technology, I have another employee that does it, but she gets overloaded, and I bring Katie in to supplement that.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think some of the reasons it works so well is having someone kind of be able to zoom out on the project. Because if you're asking that superstar employee to run this project, you know, whether it's a director of nursing or, you know, for a clinical technology project, you know, they've got to do their job every day, right? And so when they get in the weeds of the details of an implementation, you know, it's hard. You can easily lose focus on where we're headed, what goals we set out to start with. And so having that dedicated project manager to continue to drive the project in that direction of the results we're looking for is critical. And if it's a unbiased third party, that's even better, because I don't have the politics going on. I can go in and you know, be your scapegoat. I tell that to Dave all the time, like, hey, I'm your scapegoat. I'll go tell them, you know, we got to do this a certain way or by a certain time. And just keeping that perspective, that zoomed out perspective, when things get really nitty gritty in the details of getting something implemented.
I want to ask you what I'm going to call the Steve Moran question, okay? Because Steve always asks the hard questions, and I'm always like, okay, Katie, what does this cost? You know, and when you answer that, what does this cost, and how much is the community saving by bringing someone like you in and saving their staff resources?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's time and materials. So you just pay for what you get and or what you need. And from a savings perspective, I mean, to choose the wrong solution for your organization that doesn't align. We play matchmaker at the beginning before the project even starts of, you know, who's the right vendor, what is the right platform for us based on our requirements. And having to go back to the drawing board 2 years later, that's a cost. And I know people talk about like the time savings of like my staff's not having to manage the project. Yes, true. But I think the much bigger value, monetary value, is actually seeing results from your implementation. And when you go live, you're leveraging so many more of the features than you would if you were just trying to get it in there, get it done in your spare time, as a department. We're going to do so much adoption planning and pre-planning and being really clear on how the organization envisions utilizing the features and functions. You're not going to use 100% of it on day one, of course not. But we have a plan. We're going to use a lot of it from day one. I mean, the vendors are always like, when I'm involved with the implementation, they're like, yeah, we don't usually go this far, on the first go. I'm like, they said, but you've already got it all planned out. Like, everyone's on board. They know what to expect. They know how they're going to be using this tool. So this is awesome. So they start much further along. And then we also have a plan for continuously expanding our use of that platform over the next, 1 or 2 years. And so your CFO is not going, remember when I gave you, $250,000 for that HCM platform? Like, what are we doing with it? Why don't I have an app on my phone yet? And why can't I do anything yet? So,
Abbie, can I add to something Katie said there? That's, I think, is really important. One thing that she brings to the table is the inclusiveness of the end users. Where maybe I don't pay as much attention as I should, but when we're done with an implementation, those end users know exactly why we put that in and what it's for and how to use it. Instead of, I've been involved with projects in the past and not involved with projects in the past where the end user said, oh, that was an IT thing. We hate this. We don't have those when Katie's group gets involved. So I think that's incredibly important because you are getting what you pay for.
And so while you may not answer my question directly, you'll answer someone else's if they reach out to you, Katie?
yes.
Okay. All right. So thank you. So, I also want to talk about anything else that we miss out on, creating a project culture, and any other additional steps that you think are key for implementing successful technology projects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we'll talk about culture in a second. And I think, really what we just talked about, Dave, is really hits on that strong project framework. Because the example I was going to use is, doing these interviews with a wide breadth of stakeholders at the organization of the senior living organization before we embark on like an HCM replacement, going out and talking to not just the HR department, but to a wide range of employees and users right out the gate, because then they're all going to be on board with what is the scope, what are we doing now, and what are we not doing yet, the scope, the goals, and mostly listening and hearing from them. Like, what do you hope to get out of this? What are you using today? And helping them understand that we're not just going to pile on to what you're doing today, but we're going to migrate to something better. We're going to solve some of the problems that you're experiencing, get rid of those mundane, repetitive tasks that should be automated, break down some of those barriers that you're encountering and some of those, things that are preventing you from doing the work that we hired you to do. And so having those in-depth conversations right from the start, everyone's on the same page and they're excited about why that person in that role should care and be excited about what's coming. Because let me tell you, there is going to be some hard work in between. But if you can help them continue to focus on how it's going to make their job easier.
Yeah, I wanted to say something too, because in regards to COVID and not being prepared and not planning out, integrating technology, so many communication touch points went to the wayside, right? And had to be duplicated and triplicated many, many times. Did you find something within COVID? Were you surprised about some of the technology not working and some of it really working well?
I was very excited about how everyone realized we need to go ahead and do these projects that we've been talking about for 5 years. Oh my goodness, we need to go digital. We everything has to be digital right now. And I was really proud of a client that said, we're going to roll out this resident engagement platform in the midst of COVID. I mean, right in the middle in 2020, they said, we've got to do this. And they rallied, and their staff, I mean, it was 10 communities, over a wide geography. So for them to take that on, it was really amazing. And just understanding that, the future's here. And so my soapbox, speech changed dramatically after that, because I've been saying, like, and they're, oh, I know we got to innovate. I know we've got to get up with the times and And it's like, now it's like, yes, Katie, come help us. We know, we got to do it now. So
awesome. How about for you, Dave?
Yeah, it's definitely, I was surprised at how much we kept moving forward even during COVID. Now, I go back to the construction side of things, but that's still a project plan. We were using Zoom constantly to meet with our engineers, our architects, our contractors, and so forth. So it was really surprising. And Zoom was not even a part of our vocabulary at the time when COVID hit. So it was something that we threw in very quickly and all started adopting. And our counselors started adopting immediately because they couldn't get to the office. So it was pretty amazing.
Good. Is there anything else here that you want to share with our listeners in terms of successful technology projects?
I was just going to mention, you had mentioned, Abbie, communications, and I think that it's part of the project managers, but it's part of everybody's role. So having a set communications plan, how you pass information back and forth. So for example, your communications type might be project status updates. Well, what's the frequency? Well, it's weekly. What's that channel? Well, we're going to send it out via email. What's the audience? It's the entire project team. Who's the owner? Who's going to send that out? The project manager. So that's just a small example of having that communications plan in place in order to be successful with these projects.
And I think it's critical in that regard, and as far as that's concerned, getting talking points to everyone. So think about your frontline folks. They're going to be talking to other staff. They're going to be talking to residents. So getting some really quick talking points to them of why we're doing this, what are we doing, how, but mostly why, what are the benefits, getting those out to managers and the frontline employees right away, so that we don't start this like, oh gosh, it's another thing they're giving it, going to make us do. So you want to control the narrative, and you can, and it's so, it's overlooked so many times, and it's really critical.
Abbie, you had mentioned culture once, and I think we should know now that to avoid project failure, advanced planning is the key. So having a strong strategy, a project manager with skills, following that strong framework, communications, you're going to build upon yourself if you start implementing these projects with that framework in mind, with all that in place. So each success will be measured and you'll be able to celebrate them. You'll eventually have a culture of project technology success, if that makes sense.
It does. That's great. That's really great. Well, Katie, I feel better just talking to you, and I'm sure that there are a lot of other people who feel the same way. How can someone get in touch with you to find out more and to understand how you can help them?
Absolutely. Please link up with me on LinkedIn. That's the platform that I'm really active on. You can just look me up, Katie Griffith. And then we've got my website and my email and phone number scrolling across there. So it's just katie@brightsolutions.co, or give me a call.
Wonderful. And Dave, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you if they're interested in maybe a reference for Katie?
Absolutely. You can reach me through the Diakon website, diakon.org, and I'm in the About section, and my phone number and email is both in there.
Okay, wonderful. Well, we are going to be, this is being broadcasted on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and on YouTube. And I will go ahead and post the link again tomorrow in case anyone happened to miss it. For the people that contributed today, both in the chat and later on, we thank you so much, because those contributions and the participation gives this much more depth. So we thank you for that. And we will be meeting you back here next week for another episode of Tech Tuesday. Thank you so much, and we'll see you back here.